Hello. Once you've taken the PI behavioral assessment, we take that information and turn it into a PI behavioral pattern. In that pattern, we measure 4 different drives, or the 4 factors. They are A, dominance, the drive for influence on people and events; B, extroversion, the drive for social interaction; C, patience, the drive for consistency and stability; and D, formality, the drive for rules and structure. Understanding each one of these 4 drives will help us better understand a person and how they operate in the workplace. PI has administered over 20 million assessments, and to make it easy for you, we've created 17 reference profiles. Think of it as shorthand, or an easy, digestible way for you to understand a wide variety of behaviors and needs. Your behavioral pattern might not fit exactly into one of these reference profiles, but most likely they'll come close. Your reference profile most closely matches a scholar profile. So let's talk about some basic needs and behaviors that come along with that. So for you, details and structure are really important. You need access to information and you need structure throughout your day. You also need time to think. You're a bit more reserved. You prefer to work a little bit more heads down. You also have patience in your pattern, so you like a little time to kind of sort through the things that you need throughout your day. But you also have what we call dominance. And dominance means that you have a little bit more of that autonomy, a little bit more of that need for ownership. And for you, it's important that you still have a say in how things are going. Let's talk a little bit about some areas of strengths and challenges that come along with this pattern. So for you, an environment where you can really dig and learn and understand, those types of environments are going to bring out the best in you, right? Those are the environments where you can really showcase that detail orientation, that structure, that need for high quality. It's important that you are in an environment that allows you to have that time to be heads down, to think, to process. Those are all really important things for you to have, really to become that true scholar, right? That subject matter expert, that person that people can rely on. With that, though, come some challenges, right? So the challenges with this pattern could be as simple as your communication style. Because you are so analytical and because you are so direct and to the point, that can come across as being maybe a bit much, especially to people who need a little bit more of that social communication style, who need a little bit more of that warm and engaging communication style. Another challenge that might be there for you is when you don't have access to a lot of information. So let's say that you're in an environment that's constantly changing, things are moving around, you really want to have the answers, and it might be a struggle and a challenge for you to make decisions quickly if you don't have access to that information. That can actually be demotivating to you, right? It can also be demotivating if you have someone that's really controlling and taking over your day-to-day. We mentioned that you have a little bit of that dominance in your pattern, so you still have a need for ownership. Let's talk a little bit about decision making, because that's really important in a PI pattern. So one of the things that we want to talk about when we talk about decision making is not just about how a person makes decisions, but also how they feel about risk. And you make decisions, as I mentioned before, with information. You make them with structure, you make them with all the bits and pieces that you can come up with in order to make a really sound, careful decision. You view risk as something that could be damaging. So if you're going to make a decision, you're going to make sure you've taken all those risky factors out of it. But there's still a piece of you, and again, this is because you have some dominance in your profile, that want to take ownership of that decision. You want to hang on to that decision. You want to make sure that that decision, once you've made it, stays close to you and that you have the ability to understand it and drive it moving forward. Communication style. Let's talk about that for a minute. Direct, to the point, factual and analytical. So sometimes a good way of thinking about it is, what's the opposite of that? So for you, the opposite is someone who is much more social and empathetic and engaging. That's not what motivates you. In fact, you'd prefer someone to communicate with you that is direct and to the point. You don't need the fluff, and that's fine. Your communication style is that much more analytical. So in summary, I want to talk about some words that we can use to describe what your scholar profile means at a high level. I would say, first and foremost, detailed, structured, taking ownership and autonomy is another important one. Patience. I would also say reserved and analytical. Those are words that definitely sum up your pattern well. So that's a little bit more about your scholar profile.